It is a nice warm Friday, and I am going to do my shorter stream for the week, and in fact this will be my last stream for the month because I'm leaving to go on vacation for a while. So I actually just have a fun little thing today, nothing too crazy, which I can get right into. So if I pop this open here, I can just work on this tiny little standalone project that I have here. It all exists in one file, just a core namespace, this whole little bit here, which what I plan to do is kind of go through it, just kind of tour through it a little bit, see if I can do it, just some tiny refactors to make it a little clearer to understand. But before I get into that, I'll actually just build it, or demonstrate it running, I should say. So if I go back here, I have Rbg random background generator. It's very simple. It's a very straightforward program. If I let's see, so I have a deps eden file, which I'll show you in a minute should be very tiny. It shouldn't really be anything crazy, just a small little program. Nice is just a little folder with some existing images that I created from it. This is the literate program org file that I have written for it, and if I go into source Rbg, cd Rbg I should say, it's just all contained in this core cljc file, which if I just open it up quickly in Vim, it's yeah, I don't know if that was a good idea to turn that on. Whole point is, that's it. That's the whole program, nothing too crazy. I'll be going through it, cleaning it up, probably making things a little shorter even, but that's all it is. And to run it, if I go here, I can do clj main rbg.core, and that'll run main file for me, and what it'll do is spit out into standard output the result, which is an SVG file. So what I want to do instead is clear the screen here, and I can run the same program, but I can push the standard out into an SVG file. So there we go. If I open up the example SVG, we've got all the output in there. And now what does it look like? That's the fun thing. I can go over here, file. Oh, let's go to the right spot though. Rbg Example Svg. And it produces this, which is the same kind of idea that you see on this screen. It's extremely simple, and so what it does is actually just print lines in a grid, either from the bottom to the top corner, from left to right, or from right to left. That's it. There's just two line orientations, and it produces this nice image. So you can run the program with a little bit of with a few options here. You can do you can set the size of it like this and the scale of it like this. So if I run that and refresh this, so it increased the grid size here, and decrease the dimensions, right? So you could use that to make, I don't know, if you wanted some different dimension. I don't know what you'd want. Let's say 1440 by 900 or something. There you go. It also randomizes on color, which maybe is nice and maybe is not. It often has cool combinations. Like this actually I think looks pretty nice. And so what you could also do if you want to save it as, say, a PNG, there's a program I've found called Svg Export. If I take example.svg, I do believe it makes, I think that'll work. It might be working. It did create a PNG. Let's see if that actually works. PNG. Yep. So there you go. Now that program is a pretty heavy program. I'm pretty sure it uses, I'm pretty sure it's a Node.js program that runs like a headless Chrome server or something to do the actual rendering of the SVG. So it's pretty, there's a lot of machinery to it, which is fine, but I didn't want to incorporate that into what I produced. So let me just remove example. So there we go. If I go into nice, it's just, oops, just two PNGs that I have made before just to kind of save them. So that's the program. One cool thing too is if I run it with Lumo, it also works. I think, yeah. So if I run it with Lumo in the namespace rbg.core, it should work just the same. So it has some warnings, but otherwise it works okay. And the warnings, oh. So let's put that out to example. Right, so here's an example of something that I have to change for a minute. But if I go into source, that doesn't exist, but there we go. So this particular SVG, which I quite like, was generated with Lumo, which means it was generated purely in Clojure script, not in Clojure, which is quite exciting to me. So now that I know what's I know what is happening, I'm gonna first of all, let me I'm gonna make a Clojure script build scenario here. Build to node.js target. Use Nexi to create a standalone executable. So that'll be the Clojure script build. Clojure script, maybe I'll try a ferret build. Changes required for a ferret build, which I don't know that I'll get to today. But I do know the changes required are Clojure.string not in ferret core. nor is string in Ferret core, which means, so the single function that I use in here is Clojure.string/replace, not available. So I could perhaps make my own implementation for Ferret. This might take more work than initially assumed, but that might be a cool exercise. But I won't worry about that too much today. So what I'm going to do instead is, so since I want to start with a Clojure script build, and eventually I will do just a Clojure Rbg build, I haven't done this before, so I need to learn how to do it. Because once you have the Rbg built, you can then do graal VM native image build TBD. So the project itself is really simple, and it's not like groundbreaking or anything, but it's just it's a thing that does do something kind of useful, and it'd be cool to have it like a final, like a shipped thing that I intend to put up on GitHub, for example. But actually, this does remind me of another cool build idea, which is single. How do I describe it? As a website. Well, let me Eclipse website. Use the Eclipse Clojure script REPL and a simple web page template to produce an interactive source code, an interactive post showing source code and finished, and the output in an HTML document. So that maybe I can get to today, but we'll see. That's kind of one of the more fun. So these two, a Clojure script binary, Clojure script node binary, and an Eclipse website approach are probably the most exciting because they are the most they're the most useful in a web context, which is cool. And then Ferret would be really neat because it's just using C++ compilers at that point, which is also just really a fun exercise. And then Rbg and graal VM would be, I think, also really valuable to learn. So those are the builds, but to start with the Clojure script one, I do want to first, sort out that this warning here. Could not locate cljs/reader or JavaScript source providing reader at line 195. So I don't know why that's showing up, because, well, that's just a little confusing to me, but I'll have a look. Okay, so I have here well, let's see. VS Code line 195 in the core file has cljs.reader/readString. Yeah. Let me see here. Hope, by the way, that everyone's doing well today. Let's close that. Let's open. I do find macOS Finder to be frustratingly slow. I don't know why that is, but it is. Okay, let's open core here. Zip down to 195 and have a look at what it means. Okay, so I have this cljs.reader/readString. What is confusing to me in this particular case is why I'm getting that error. If I start a Lumo REPL here and I do cljs.reader/readString, right? And let's read the string here. It works. So I don't know why it would spit out that warning. Use of undeclared var cljs.reader/readString. But it's not. I'm a little confused that it's giving me that warning. That's really all, because it actually does work and it does what I expect it to do, right? I just wrapped the read string functions in the Clojure and Clojure script here with a my read string function. So I had this example as well, string to int, which I might use instead, because the only time I'm using this is with arguments, and as far as I can tell, when you run a main from the command line, like I do with this program, if I pass it arguments, it takes them in as strings. So I need to be able to parse out that string. I think that's what's happening. Anyway, so it's a warning, it's not an error, which is, I guess, a step in the right direction. So this I can leave, and I'll just now go through my, well, now I'll make a bit of a build for Clojure script, and then I'll go through the code, try clean it up a little bit, slim it down, that kind of thing, and we'll see where all of that takes us. Okay, so I had made a little scrap project before to just make some notes about how to do a build. So I could in this REPL, I'm pretty sure I have in my deps here. Yeah, so actually, while I'm at it, I know I don't have garden or hiccups in at all, and I'm not using tools.cli, so we can delete that. I don't have tests yet, which probably would be smart to write a couple, so I might want to keep test check. And as it turns out, if I want to build from inside my REPL, it's good to have Clojure script in there, I suppose, because what I can do is run well, let's write this out here. Clojure. Let's make a namespace. Rbg.cljs build. Do I want to do it that way? Rbg, yeah, cljs build require, And now I pull in the CLJS build API as B. And that's it. And then here I can do options and just build a little options map here. Optimizations, advanced. There's no, as far as I know, there's no reason not to, because it's a very simple program. I'm not really calling any dependencies, so I don't really need to like save symbol names and make them. I think advanced optimizations will be just fine. Output to out/main.js in this case I think is fine, and target node.js. That should be just fine. Now I can make a little function here, defin build build CLJS, no arguments, and just run b/build source /rbg /core.cljc with options. Okay, so theoretically, if I pop this namespace into my REPL, so I'm in that namespace, define options, I should now be able to run a build. So that's the definition of it, and if I build CLJS, that should work for me, providing the same warning. I'll call that okay for now. Okay, so that worked. Now if I go out of here, oh wait, cd, let me go back into there and just delete example, remove example because I don't want to clutter it up. If I go in here, core, source, okay, now I'm in the top level of the project. So I've got deps.eden, rbg.org, source, and out. If I cd into out, I've got all this stuff in there. But if I run node main.js, this should it did not work. Why would that be? Maybe it's well, let me go back to my notes here for a minute. Should be able to run it here. That should have worked. That is weird. Okay, let me figure out why that would be. So the difference, probably have to do that. Enable console print would be my guess. So let me see if that makes the difference actually. So if I go in here and I make a reader conditional CLJS, paste that in there, that should work. Looks like it'll work. That's my guess. So that's tangled in there. Now if I run the build again, here, just wait for it to finish, it'll give me a warning. right? So it built again. Now if I run, still nothing. Let me do that. I actually thought this would be a little simpler. Silly me. Right, so enable console print I thought would totally work. Well, let's have a quick peek at this here. If I call main with nothing, it'll do all that stuff, and it does use a print line. Okay, well let's try build it there one more time. Give it a moment to build. Okay. Node main. It's not doing anything. Let me attempt. Let's try with Clojure script here. Optimization simple. Is that a valid option? Let's see. Well, let's run it with some arguments. Still nothing. I don't know why that would be. I wonder if I could just build source like this. No. Well, let's see. Let me see. Nope, that's not what I need. Builds. Well, actually, okay. CLJS enable console print does work in theory. Let me try this directly. Okay, so let's build this one more time. Let's run it, node out / main. It's not working. Okay, out main.js. No. I really thought this would work. Apparently not. Okay. Running Clojure script on this. Okay, so if there's no target, Clojure script generates code for browsers. Well, let's try this little bit here. So it'll be rbg.core, not helloworld.core. Target is node, output to out/main.js. I don't see why this will be any different, but I may as well try it, right? Remove out. Boy, my washer and dryer is a little noisy right now, but hey, that'll just have to be fine. Okay, let's see if this does anything for me. Okay, node out. Still no. Okay, so that's not it. Well, let's make my main function the simplest possible thing. Main takes nothing, and all it does is, right, so this example up here, enable console print is there at the top, which it is also here, enable console print, and here all it's going to print is hello world, right? So forget all this other stuff that's up there. Let me run this. Oh. Well, actually, does that node out slash main? Nope. I don't understand why that is doing that. Is Lumo any different? Well, okay, let me save it that way. Try to build one more time. Node out slash main.js. It doesn't output anything. Why might that be? Oops. Well, let's figure this out for a moment. Optimizations, advanced, output to there, target, Node.js. Build CLJS. Run this. Just try one more time. Nothing. Okay. If instead of let me get rid of the warning spots and see if that makes a difference. Okay, so I've got here, this is where the warning occurs. If I just comment that out, it's only being used in the this main function, which currently doesn't exist anyway. So all I have to do run it again. It should not have a warning. Okay, so out exists again, node out slash main. It's still doing nothing. Eesh. I don't know why that is. I don't need any of that. Right, so Clojure script, that's theoretically fine. I really am confused by this. Unfortunately, let's try this for a moment. Try it like that. Try to run it. Nothing. That is a little bit frustrating to me. Okay. Let's remove the target entirely and try it that way. Oop. Why? Why not? Why not? Well, okay, let me undo. Let's move this, right? Let's move that into this spot right here. Okay. Maybe do. Save that. Node out/main. I totally thought this was going to be smooth sailing. I am clearly mistaken about that. Well, let me head back into build it. Let me run. If I cd source list vim hello, enable console print. What does that look like? Wait a second. Oh, I forgot to put it back. Let me do, there we go. Enable console print. Let's go back here. Okay, now let me just build it for a moment with let's go here to the Clojure script one for a moment. Right, let's run this. Oh, am I in the right folder? Yes, I am. Maybe not. Let's try it here. Yeah, that's a fine warning. I don't mind. Right, so if I now do node out/main, it's not doing anything. So what's different now? Because that was working before, I thought. Let me quit the terminal. Load up a terminal, and I will be back in a moment to figure this out. Right. So I had a terminal somewhere. Maybe. There's one. Not sure what's going on there. Alright, let's see if we can get this sorted out. Node out slash main. Okay, so it's not that. Alright, let me Is there a node eval? Oh, let me swap this back. Okay, so it can console log, but why is my program not logging? I don't understand that. That's confusing to me. Because I thought it was working before. Well, let's get back to the program I was trying to work on anyway, cd rbg. Let's get it back to a state where it works by calling through like Lumo or something. So let's go here. So this build thing theoretically should still be fine, in theory. I don't know why it's not working, but I'll try to figure it out. This main function I don't actually need. This main function should work. It's got a print line in there. That should be fine. This read string, in theory, is okay as well. Although, here, let me get rid of this call to my read string while I'm in this spot. Let me do string to int, which is this function here, which should work just as well. And then here, right, I can map string to int over the split of that, and that should produce correct values. So if I go back to namespace rbg.core, okay. Okay. we're at a state where reach string is out. This should supposedly, this should work. So let me try it. We'll do WXH on the string 400 by 400. Should give me a list of two integers, 400, 400. And then this should work just fine. Although instead of this, I don't need that at all. I just need this. Yeah. Perfect. So that should work. Save that, angle it. Enable console print. Maybe I don't need that. Maybe I do. Well, okay, let's save that. Let me go in here and do clj-m rbg.core, right? And let me do 200 by 200 scale. Oh, I don't need to put it in quotes. 200 by 200 scale of 20, so it should be quick. Yeah, so it's working. And if I do Lumo, hey Lumi, how's it going? Hope you're having a good day. Oops. Okay, so that works too. It's a bit warm today. Yeah, I'm feeling the same where I'm at actually. 27 degrees Celsius, my my watch is telling me right now, so a bit toasty. Okay. So my little program is working. I'm just trying to get a Clojure script node build to work, and it isn't working the way that I thought it would be working. That's my current problem. 33 indoors now. Really need to get your AC fixed. Oh man, I'm not jealous of your current situation. Yeah, I like the heat and humidity past probably, I think my ideal temperature is like 17 degrees Celsius. It just feels so oppressive, you know, like you can't move almost. Yeah, that's no fun. Sorry about that. Okay. I don't know why it's not putting output to the console there. Have to agree there. Your body gets kind of used to 25°C after a few days, but the temperatures move all over the place here. So I don't actually know where you're at specifically, but so I'm in southern Ontario in Canada, and currently the same thing is happening here. You get your mind and body get used to a temperature at this level, and then Thursday and Friday it's this hot, and then Monday it's like really cold again, and you can never get used to anything. It's wild times. Is this going to make a difference? I have no clue. Oops, wrong thing here. Build CLJS. Well, okay, that's just not working for me right now. That's frustrating to me. Well, let me just make a little note here. Running. You can, to run Rbg. I'm just gonna put the little commands here. CLJM. CD into projects top level folder, where the rbg.org and deps.eden file are. Right, then you run clj-m rbg.core. How do I want to format this? Produces an SVG string for a 1920 by 1080 background. And then this cljm rbg.core, and you give it, let's say, 1280 by 720, scale of 12, scale of 20. That produces an SVG string for a 1280 by 720, grid size 20 pixels, background. Okay. I tend to build applications as a server and then use a tiny fast starting binary that sends commands to the process for use as a CLI. That pattern makes sense to me. It wasn't what I was going for in this particular program, so I'm not sure if you even know what this does. I can show it off for a minute. It's just a toy thing to experiment with different kind of approaches and to actually have something that is technically like a shipped bit of code that does a thing that's not totally trivial, although it might be considered trivial anyway. But here, let me run an example of what it does, just to show it for a moment. So if I run this and I pass it in just that as an argument, if I just run that, it'll just put into standard output a string of SVG. So if but if I don't run it with that, it has some defaults for a 1080p output, but I want to put it into example.svg. So just let that run for a moment. So there we go. And then if I look at that SVG file, there we go. It's just a random background generator. And if I run it again, it just overwrites the file, right? And then has a different pattern to it and a different set of colors. I realized showing this on the stream might actually like mess with the bit rate. So sorry if the quality just drops off a cliff for a moment there. That's my bad. So all I'm trying to do, oh, it looks fine. Startup times are okay. So anecdotally, if I run something with CLJ like this, if I've walked away from the computer for an hour or so, and then run it, it usually takes some chunk of time. But then if I run things again immediately after, the time seems to be much shorter. Now I don't know if that should theoretically make a difference. For large programs, it's a lot slower. Yeah, I believe that. This is, as you can see, not a large program. And it doesn't do anything crazy. It just emits some strings, or a string. So nothing too wild. What I do like is I can run it in Clojure script as well. Oops. Lumo class path source main. So this should still run, and that should work. Yeah. So that's just working in both. Can you compile it with Graal? That's on the list of things to try. No, I'm not using dependencies. I'll show the code in just a moment. I specifically tried this as a little thing to. I'll explain in just a moment. I want to just copy this into my notes here so I don't have to remember it. There. Yeah, so the dependencies I have are exactly as you say, none. I have Clojure script in there and test check just in case I was gonna write tests for it or anything, but when you're actually running it, I had hiccup in there, but I made my own little pared down minimal implementation of it right here. So that is what I use to emit the SVG elements directly. So I had a hiccup dependency and a thing called garden, which is a hiccup, like it's basically the same as a hiccup compiler but for CSS. I had both of those and I just made my own minimal implementations for those instead, just as a bit of an exercise. But so here's I want to build a Clojure script. I want to do an uberjar, and then from the uberjar make it, put it through Graal VM, but I won't have time to do that today. It's just on the list to do. Ferret was a fun one. It's I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's not, I guess it's not like a Clojure dialect or anything. It's just a Lisp that looks like Clojure that you can use to make C++, which I thought was cool. But there's a lot of things, well, there's a few things missing in the core for Ferret, so it's not a one-to-one. And Clips was something I had in mind for turning this into like a thing you can run on a blog post or something like that. By the way, the right way to integrate deps.eden with Lumo is to generate the class path using CLJ S path and pass that into LumoC. Does that oh boy, okay. That's the whole class path. So I get your point there. I'm imagining a theoretical scenario where you don't have like CLJ as a tool or even Java installed, right? Like you literally only have Lumo because you don't want to use the JVM. In that case, I assume you'd have to manually generate a class path or something like that. I don't know. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. So the only reason I put that in there is because this I don't think, oh geez, this doesn't work, right? It doesn't look into the source file. But for the small program that I have, this does work because it puts just source into the class path and then everything else is working. But actually, I'll make that a note there. How would you do it if you had dependencies though? Yeah, so I am realizing that you're totally right. The tools do still depend a bit on Java, but you use Shadow CLJS. Oh yeah, you know what? Thanks for reminding me. I'm not going to get to it today, but that's been a tool that I've been meaning to look into a little bit because I hear about it more and more frequently. It seems like a powerful approach. Shadow CLJS for Clojure script, and then use the compiled JS files with Node. So what I'm attempting to do right now is so if I run this, right, the way I've designed this program, oh, I don't need to do it that way, is it just emits a string into standard output, like into your terminal. But when I try and do a build, and this, maybe I'm missing something really simple, I don't know. I'm building out to a main, like a compiled JS and everything, right? There's out. What I thought would happen is if I run node out/main.js, I thought that it would print the output right here, but it's not doing anything. And so that's where I got stuck. I don't know why it's behaving that way. Most of the code you write isn't actually compatible with self-hosted Clojure script anyway. You use macros a lot. Yeah, that's pretty fair. That makes sense. Didn't generate the entry point script. See, you probably have to create a small JS wrapper that calls the init function. That, you might be completely right. I'm purely going, I was just going from this little set of examples here, right? So you've just got a very basic program, hello world, of course. and I was trying to see if I could get it to work with my little program. I was starting this stream totally thinking it would work exactly as I had planned, and then I just don't know what's going on. That's all. There is little reason to use advanced optimizations. I haven't tried none yet for optimizations. Let's see if that makes any difference. If not, then I'll just move on and read through the code and try to put a bit of documentation in before I go. Maybe that you need a special option to work with Node specifically. So I have because I thought this was part of it, I have a reader conditional here, enable console print. And I thought that would do the trick, but it hasn't been helping me out so far. Target node. Yeah, I had Node.js. Maybe Node.js isn't. So before you were commenting at all, I had been running it with Node.js. Although now that I realize it, maybe the target has to be just Node like that. Let me try. Optimizations none, target Node. I'll see if that works. Okay, well now we're getting somewhere. Goog is not defined, eh? Let's try that. Oh, Node.js is the option? Okay. Yeah. Things just aren't working out the way I thought they would today. You know, I can almost feel that this is something not too complicated and I'm just totally missing it right now. I have one other thing I could try. Run it through the Lumo build instead of the CLJS build API. Maybe that'll do it. Let's try simple. Let's put this back to Node.js. Actually, let's try none. Okay, we're good there. Let's build it. Build systems are always a hassle though. Yeah. It's always the part that I'm least excited about because things seem so complicated and like they're built on a house of cards almost. I know that's not necessarily true. It just is always how I feel about it. What did I do here? Oh, Node.js target with none optimizations requires a main entry. What is main supposed to look like? Main. No. None of these are what I'm looking at here. There's main a lot in this. Target. where did I I forget where this is supposed to be here. Build options. Compiler options. Main, there we go. An entry point namespace. Let me see if I can get this to work. Let's have a go. Okay, it did a build. Node out slash main. That still didn't work. And I don't know why. Well, let me take one little step back. Let's just try to run a Lumo thing here. Let me oop, not supposed to actually. Oh man, I goofed it all up. Let's do let's be lazy, copy and paste, but we call it Rbg Lumo build. All you require is okay, Lumo, the Lumo build API. That's the only difference. As B. Let's try run that and see what goes. Let's just see. Still not. Wonder why you don't use the terminal in Emacs. I don't have a real reason. I just haven't yet. I forget. Is it shell? Oh. That was, okay, so that was the original reason why, I believe. And I just haven't bothered to put aliases in there properly. I'm pretty sure that was literally the only reason why I did that, because I was lazy. So I guess I'd have to, yeah. It's a silly reason. I'm not going to deny. But I can put it on the list of things to be good at. Okay. 626, yeah. Make it so your Emacs shell will work exactly the same as term.app. This means aliases work, etc. Yeah, it's a really lame reason, but that's totally it. I tried to run a program in it once and it said not found, and I said, fine, I'll use the terminal, and I haven't switched it around. Pretty lame. Okay, so I'm getting nowhere with Clojure script and Lumo builds for some reason, and that's frustrating. I just don't know why it doesn't work. Well, okay. Let me have a look. So I can run it just fine this way. Let me make one final note here. To a file with, you could just do clj, oh, let me, clj main rbg.core into file.svg, and if you have Svg Export, a node program installed, Svg Export file.svg, file.png will create a PNG file. Right, there's the program, nice and simple. Let me just have a quick look through some of the source, see if there's something I can make simpler, delete entirely, and that will be all I have time for today, I think. Going on vacation for a bit, so I don't have a ton of time to work today. That's why I was hoping I could do something a little bit easier. It ended up not being smooth sailing, but hey, that's the way it goes sometimes. I'm okay with it. Okay, so the namespace is very simple. I just use Clojure string. Helpers, these are all I'm not sure how to really speak to that much. HSL string, formats, HSL color into CSS string, rule string, as a string, random color, it doesn't randomly create it, it creates an HSLC color string with random H, S, and L there. Baseline attributes. These are for, can you put, oh yeah, you can. So line adders is base CSS attributes for SVG line elements. The style guide. Is there something like blaringly obvious that I'm doing incorrectly? Is it should it be like that, or is it something more general than that? Oh, you're related to right. Let the first line in the doc string be a complete capitalized sentence which concisely describes the var in question. Makes it easy for tooling to display a short summary of the doc string at various places. That is a very fair point. read I could read the Clojure style guide. Docstring formatting matters. There we go. Def doesn't support docstrings. Yeah, see, that's what I thought. The reason I was confused for a moment there is it's highlighting as if it were fine. So it does seem to support a docstring, unless I'm just... Oh, no. Never mind. Wait, can you do... Yeah, too many arguments to def there. So you might be right, but I'm confused why this worked in my REPL. I've got def, then the symbol name, right, and then effectively a docstring, and then I have the map there. Oh, you were incorrect? Fair enough. Yeah, so it seemed to work just directly in my REPL there. So actually, if I now do clojure.repl/doc of line adders, yeah, okay, that did work. All right, but you're totally right for pointing this out. It should be a complete sentence, like you say. No reason not to follow some style guides. I think that's completely reasonable. So in a case like this, I actually don't know if it is a good idea to have this here or not, because I know that the way I've run this, I don't actually need any attributes for the rectangle, but so I kind of wonder if I should have it at all or not. That was the thing I was not sure of. Must have gotten fixed at some point. Oh, docstrings in def. And personally, I don't put many docstrings on things that are obvious. If it's faster to read the source, why describe it in English? That is a very good point, actually. Well, so I'm not going to delete this little chunk here, but your point makes a lot of sense. This I should make key to string though, instead of k, I think. There we go. So this let me change it to CSS, HTML, minimal compilers. You're going to put this on GitHub? Yeah. So when I'm done streaming today, the next thing I'm going to do is put this on, put this up on my GitHub, and I'm going to update my on my channel page, the links section, and it'll be to GitHub there. And yeah, so boy, sorry, my mind's going all over the place. I'm leaving for about a week of vacation this afternoon, so I won't be streaming for, unfortunately, the rest of the month. I figure, I mean, I'm not disappointing a huge number of people anyway at this point, but this whole month was kind of a streaming experiment for me anyway. So now I know a little bit the kind of work I have to do behind the scenes to make the streams better. And in July, I will be approaching streaming a little more, with a little more prep and planning, and linking all of the stuff I work on to a GitHub that I have frequently updated and eventually tied into like a chat bot or something like that is on the list of things I intend to do. The very first minimal version of me doing that will be putting this thing on my GitHub and putting a link in my channel page. So thanks for pointing that out. You're totally right, and that is exactly the plan. What's nice about this is it's nothing crazy special, but it is something that works and does what I intended it to do. So it's effectively a mini project that's actually finished, which is kind of nice to put out on GitHub, and then as I go, I'll just build up more and more projects and projects and GitHub repos where eventually I'll be good at some things. That was a long-winded thing to say. Yes, this will be on GitHub and I'll have links ready to go. Snippet, that's maybe a confusing what would I call it instead? So a snippet, let me rbg.core, a snippet, which I didn't have a good name for before, is a piece of like hiccup code basically. So this is not a snippet, but if it's got an HTML keyword tag in there, then it is. It's very minimal. Like that should also be a snippet. So I wonder if I should call it like HTML snippet. And snippet might not be, it's kind of a weird word too. Hiccup, if that's what you're testing for. Yeah, actually that's a good point. Why not just call it the name? That's a much better approach. And this rule is it's a CSS rule. So now I have to make sure those predicates, when I call them, I use the proper name. Oh, here I had a half implementation of my CSS before. I'll call it my CSS there. Oops. Key to string, key to tags. Yep. Insert props should probably be properties. Here is my little bit of things, key to tags. Hiccup to HTML of hiccup. Missed a K to string in attribute to HTML. Really should use refactoring tools for stuff like this. I've never actually used refactoring tools before. I can completely see why you're totally right. Do you have specific refactoring tool suggestions that you use? Because you're completely right. I see exactly where it should be used. Okay. This. So I have a feeling I missed something somewhere. Let me run it and find out. Remove example. Okay. CLJ m rbg.core. See, this is one little downside with my org literate programming workflow. If I get a syntax error, right, I have the line number, but the line number, oops. All right. If I have a line number, it doesn't correspond to the line, like I could show line numbers in this file, but it doesn't correspond to the line number in the org file because I've got all kinds of other lines in there that throws it off. Cider has rename refactorings. You could use source mapping technique for that, but it takes some work. Oh, source mapping for the org mode stuff that I'm talking about? Probably won't work in org mode though. Yeah. So I'm not opposed to the refactoring. Sorry, I understand what you mean now. There are some weaknesses in the org mode Tangle literate programming workflow, and I'm not opposed to changing my workflow, but it inevitably is a little bit more work than just, let me just immediately switch to that. So I start to hesitate. That's not in and of itself to say that I'm not going to change things up, because there's so much stuff I need to get quicker at, but changes don't always come for free. You can make everything work, but you'd have to script Emacs to do it. Well, yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong about that. I was looking for all right, CSS. This is still wrong. So was this. Well, let's see if I've missed other stuff or how much other stuff I've missed. Hey, it works. Okay, that's reasonable. Okay, so CSS, you have a function that turns a rule into a CSS string, and then you have my CSS, which is the compiler, which takes a CSS rule and returns the string. So this, let me just do my CSS. Org mode style programming is good for teaching and for notes, but not so for professional projects. I kind of halfway agree with you. I think well, what am I trying to say? No, you're right. I do end up agreeing with you there. I've been able to do small projects and little experiments nicely in a way that I like in org mode, but yeah, I would imagine there would be a lot of friction if you're working, say, with a team on a larger code base. You basically can't use org mode at that point because you need everyone to buy in, and you need everyone's setup to be compatible on various levels. So in that regard, it's probably not good. And even if you're working on a solo project, I could see the limits of its usefulness. So that's probably a fair point. One of the things I want to be doing more in the next month is actually producing some like blog posts, and org mode I think is still going to be a useful tool for that kind of stuff, where the stuff I'm learning as I go, I write notes, make them understandable, then I can use org mode to build up my note and then produce a nice blog post out of it. You can still do literate programming in Lisp only. What do you mean by that? That's intriguing to me. Do you mean like in the sense you can do like this? Comment here, you can write whatever you want? Is that what you're referring to, or am I missing something more, even more intriguing than that? So my CSS, let's imagine you want to style a p tag with margin 0 and width 100 pixels. Oh, I broke it. Oh, maybe my rule system isn't good. Oh, maybe it doesn't work the way I thought. I'll check that in a minute. Clojure is just data. There's nothing preventing you from putting extra data in that you can selectively pull out even at runtime. Yeah. Can you now maybe you don't even need to do this, but can you define your own reader conditionals? A quoted top level S expression, my extra data, hash equals custom reader stuff. I'll have to look into that myself a little bit actually. I've not seen the hash equals comment blocks, quoting extra data, custom reader conditionals, etc. Use your imagination. Hash equals if true 1 2. Can't resolve if. So the other customization, did I typo it or something? If true 1 2, whatever. So the other customization is data readers, which have all the stuff a macro has, except it's at reader time. That would be very useful too. Data readers. There we go. Did I, oh, I wonder if I didn't, oh, this is, right, I need to load file. Core, CLJ, C. So now that should work. There we go. Right, so my CSS, there we go, makes, it's not perfect because it's not like you might want, you would maybe want it to print with 2 spaces in front of those, but it does work. There's an example. Hash equal doesn't support special forms. Well, that was a trivially silly example, but might not. Yeah, whoop. Doesn't support special forms. Maybe. Okay, so the CSS thing, I don't know if I should call it my CSS or just call it CSS. I'll leave it as my for now. No reason not to. HTML. This was old, I don't need that. Good. So my HTML works more or less. Print line. Actually, here would be a good spot for like some tests, right? I think you write a test that runs my CSS on a bunch of CSS things that you expect to work, and then on some HTML that you would or hiccup that you would also expect to work. That's a good idea, actually. Let me put a little note here. Split. Which I don't have the time to put in, unfortunately, which is not really great all the time, but you can do stuff like hash equals plus 1, 2, yeah, or similar. Yep. Good, good. So let me put just a little thing here. Test empty. Test tag like that. Test so those are just some of the ones to test there. Here, test empty, test tag string, and then test nested varieties, test optional map args. So those are to be built, of course, but for now they're okay. The generator itself, gotta get going soon. Probably maybe another 10 minutes. I don't have much time. So this SVG is just a it just wraps your content in the SVG element with the proper viewport setup so that it looks correct. So the Clojure and the Clojure script reader are different in this case. Default Clojure reader doesn't seem to fully eval the form. That is good to know. Put a little note here. CLJS, CLJ default readers have different behavior. It's important to know that. CLJ does function invocation, object creation. Based on chat with Lumi. There we go. Nothing that requires compilation or special forms. Clojure script or Clojure and Clojure reader. If you use tools.reader, it will use full-on eval. CLJS and tools.reader will use full eval. Good to know. Thanks for the input. Right, which is exactly what the REPL would use. Yeah, that makes sense. So here, it might, here, wraps a CSS string in C data tags to embed inside SVG elements. For embedding so I've got rect line, should call it line, I think. So it's probably an oversight. Hash equals is not documented in Clojure, but it is documented in Clojure script. I wonder if it was a feature added in Clojure script first and then kind of put into Clojure. That might be off base. I have no reason other than a guess to think that. Define line. And here, move line. There we go. Map get in line that whole bit. That is fine. So now I just have to make sure when I generate lines, I call the line function, not the ln function. Concatenate rectangle, and then I do move line, get lines of that whole bit. Okay, just run it one more time to make sure I didn't miss anything. Git blame suggests it was added 12 years ago. Might have been around the time Clojure script was released. Clojure script. Yeah, I don't remember the timeline on Clojure script, but it could very well be the case. Okay, so these function names seem pretty good. Generate background data. I don't know that I love that terminology. Generate CSS, no arguments. Why do I have a path? I don't think I need that one. I think that makes no difference. Clojure was released around that time. Yeah, okay. 2011 was Clojure script. Right, so it's not a Clojure script only thing. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. I wonder, it just might be just not a very commonly used feature, or just too many things and you end up missing some things in the documentation. I don't know. Let me try to run this now into example.svg. Would only be useful for conditional compilation. Probably not something everyone's doing much of the time. Oh, I think I remember I had I was experimenting with this. I had a curved path instead, and I had to add path into the CSS definition. But I'm not using a path, I'm only using a line structure, or a line element, so I can delete that entirely. That should be fine. And if I generate background data, generate background, and then the main. Oh, this is no longer the case. Let me, I realized, let me just, no, never mind. Main function, default args. I don't need a name because it doesn't make a file. Validate, I don't have a validate. String to int is all I need. I don't need a read string there. Main, I'm also not using this at all, right? So I can get rid of that. Because the default args I just have kind of hard coded as a call to main. Maybe not the smartest, but it works okay. Save that. Guess it's kind of related to the fact that even Java doesn't have conditional compilation. It would only be useful for performance, things like that. In most languages that use it extensively, code just looks horribly ugly. CLJC portable code included. I kind of assume you're referring to stuff like this, where you end up kind of peppering reader conditionals in kind of everywhere for the little cases where it matters. Is that what you mean, at least in the CLJC case? Well, you don't have to though. Put it in 2 files. Yeah, that's true. Right, so in theory, right, you could have a CLJC file that you could, if the world were perfect, it would, with no changes whatsoever, it would run in a CLJ context or a CLJS context, and then the specifics to CLJS are in its own file, and the Clojure specifics are in its own file as well, right? You should only have it in a portability layer, cleanly separated from the real code. Kind of the pain of a platform language that has a small core. Yeah, that makes sense. In any project I've looked through, the only reader conditional stuff I see is like related to very small things, and then you're right, the bulk of platform specific stuff is separated out into its own files. And I think that does make sense for reading things out in the long run. It makes a lot of sense to me. Try this one more time. Yep, that's working. Reader conditionals on require statements. Yeah, that's where I've seen it some of the time. Because like sometimes I think you could end up where, well, wait a second. Right, so you would use the reader conditional on the NS form because you would require in the CLJS if you're in a Clojure script scenario, or you'd require in the CLJ file if you're in the Clojure scenario. And then that's like the only spot that you have to have it, would be the theory in my brain. Okay, so I am gonna have to get going. I'm gonna take just a little bit of time to put this kind of as is up on GitHub, and I'll be linking that into my the panels on my channel. Hope I relax well on my vacation. Hey, thanks, man, or person. I'm using man. I don't want to be assuming anything about that. Thanks, my friend. That's really kind. It's going to be a great vacation. We've got jet skis out on the lake. Oh, some of my favorite things. You hope to see me back soon. I hope to be back soon. I'll be back in July, and that's correct, by the way. Oh, cool. No worries then. So you hope to see me back. I will absolutely be back and continuing my streaming, and I'm going to, because it's making me better in a few ways. It's forcing me to do more learning about programming, which, since I'm self-taught, I kind of need to keep the pressure on. It's forcing me to try and articulate my ideas more clearly, which is always valuable and something I think everyone can always be practicing. And doing it on stream is a little scary, but a lot of fun. And streaming as a skill in and of itself is also something I hope to improve on. So I'll be back in July, and I'll be having streamed every day of the month so far. It's very clear to me the things I need to improve and the things that won't be sustainable. So with that knowledge, I'm really hoping I can make things better in July. And I'm glad that anyone would tune in and join me in that process. So I'll be on my way, heading to vacation soon. Thank you so much for tuning in. I always appreciate it, and I will be back in July. So have a good one, and I'll have a good one too. See you later.